Hey everybody. So in class lately, you know we've done addition, subtraction, and multiplication with decimals. So tonight we're going to do the final operation. We're going to work on division. So when we divide decimals by whole numbers, that's the first type of problem we're going to look at. There are only two steps. The first is you use long division, just like you would if it was only whole numbers we were using. And the second is we got to put the decimal where it needs to go. And to do that, we place the decimal in the quotient directly above the decimal in the dividend. So the quotient, remember, is just a fancy way of saying the answer to an addition or to a division problem. So here we're going to set up our long division in our first example, example A. So there's our division symbol. We are doing 9.15 divided by 3. And this 9.15 here, this number underneath is the dividend. So that is what is going to tell us where we put the decimal in our final answer. So let's do our long division here. We'll just go through step by step. I know 3 goes into 9 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. And I subtract those. 9 minus 9 is going to give me 0. Now I bring the 1 down. So I just have 1 there. 3 goes into 1 0 times. 0 times 3 is 0. We're going to subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. I bring down the 5. And 3 goes into 15 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. Running out of room here. And I know 15 minus 15 gives me 0. I'll have to scroll down a little bit to put that in. 0. And remember, when we get a 0 down here, we're done. So my final step, I did my long division. I just need to put my decimal in the right spot, and just like it says in step number 2 there, we just place it directly above. So it is going to go right between the 3 and the 0. So my answer to this problem is 3.05. So just regular long division, and we put the decimal in the answer directly above where it is in the problem. Now, here is where it gets a little tricky, and you can see that because we have 4 steps here, and that's when we divide decimals by decimals. So the first thing we have to do when we're dividing decimals by decimals is change the divisor. That's the second number, so this is the divisor right here. The second number, I'll write it on this one too, the divisor. We have to change that number into a whole number, and we do that by moving the decimal point to the right. So we have to move this decimal point to the right, and now this is a whole number, right? It's 5. We move the decimal point to the right 1 space. The second step is we move the decimal point in the dividend. That's the first number. So this is the dividend right here. And this is our dividend over here. We have to move that decimal point to the right the same number of spaces. So I did it to the right 1 space on the divisor, on the dividend, 1 space. So now my new problem here is going to be 127.5, because that decimal is now after the 7, 127.5 divided by 5. So these are 2 different numbers. I just moved the decimal 1 space to the right for both of those. So now I just do my long division. That's my third step. So the same thing we did earlier. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here. So I have to put 127.5 inside my division sign. Put my 5 outside. I'm just going to do my long division. Now 5 doesn't go into 1, so I'm going to leave that space above the 1 blank, but it does go into 12 twice. 2 times 5 is 10. Subtract, that gives me 2. I bring the 7 down. 5 goes into 27. I know that 5 times 5 is 25. So I'll put the 5 there. Multiply to get 25 here. 27 minus 25 is 2. And I bring that 5 down. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So now 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract that, I get 0. So I'm done with my long division. Now step number 4, I just have to place the decimal point. Remember, it just comes straight up from where it is in the dividend to where it needs to be in the quotient. So I put it right between my two 5s, and I have my answer here, 25.5. For our final example tonight, we have a little bit of a weird one here. We have 0.3 divided by 0.008. So we're still going to do the first step, which is move this decimal over for the divisor, right? So I have to move it over 1, 2, 3 places to create a whole number, and that way I'm just dividing by 8. Now, we have to move the decimal for the dividend over the same amount, and that's where it gets a little tricky. I'm going to rewrite the dividend here, 0.3, and I have to move it over 1, 2, 3 places. So when I have these empty spaces here, I have to fill those in with zeros, so we end up having 300 is the number that we're dividing. So the problem that we're actually doing here is 300 divided by 8. So if I put that into my long division, 300 divided by 8, then I got to think, how many times does 8 go into 3? That's 0 times, but it goes into 30 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. We subtract. 30 minus 24 is 6. Bring down the 0 here, and 8 goes into 60. 8 doesn't go into 60 evenly. It goes into 67 times, but 7 times 8 is 56. So when we subtract that, 60 minus 56, we get 4. And now I have to add a 0.0 to the 300 to finish my problem. Because once I bring that 0 down, now I have 40. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. And I subtract and get 0. So now I bring my decimal straight up into my answer, into my quotient, and my answer is 37.5.